Welcome to another video with Lieutenant Skip, and today we're going to be talking about some characteristics that are key to your success in being hired by police departments. And what I mean is the more you can show these characteristics, the more interest they will have to hire you onto their department. So today we are going to be talking about resoluteness. So being resolute. And let's go into a deep dive and talk about how this is a critical and key component to being a successful candidate. So real quickly, I'm going to read this definition here, this theory of being resolute. Resolute, it's more than just being tough. It's about unwavering determination, a firm purpose, and a persistent commitment to doing what is right, no matter the obstacles. Think about that. What do you think when you hear that term resolute? For me, the first thing that comes to mind is the movie National Treasure with Nicolas Cage and the resolute desk and the things that were hidden in there. But beyond that, as a person, what do you think? What do you feel when you hear that word? What pops up into your mind? Generally, it's about strength, right? You get an image of someone who is strong, who has fortitude, who is persistent, determined, who is unwavering. And when you get that, you feel a sense maybe of confidence in that person, that you can trust them. You can trust that they will carry out and fulfill what they say they will. So keep that in mind as we go into a little bit more here about being resolute and how it plays a part in law enforcement. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is that being resolute, it's not about being the most aggressive person or the loudest. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the things that go into being a resolute person, right? We've got determination, that decision to achieve a goal no matter what. We've got persistence, that you are going to continue in spite of those things that come up, those obstacles. Because guess what? If you've done anything in life, you've come across challenges. Things are not always easy. Things do not go as planned. So hand in hand with that determination is that persistence, that you are still going to continue on. In life, you are going to get kicked in the ass. In this career, you're going to get kicked in the ass, figuratively and literally. But it's that objective that you have, that goal that you are going to get back up, that you are going to surmount or overcome that obstacle. It's using your moral compass to do what's right. Okay? Being in those situations where you have to act on integrity, being ethical, being moral, and doing the right thing. So one other thing is, these things that we talk about, they might prompt an image of a soldier, right? Special operations, infantry member, a Navy SEAL, a pilot. But one of the things to keep in mind is that being resolute doesn't always mean being the loudest. It doesn't mean being the most aggressive. But it does mean that whoever is resolute possesses that inner strength, that fortitude, and the unwavering focus to their goals. Okay. So now with that, can you sort of think about some other people who may be resolute in your life? A couple things that come to mind for me would be some teachers, right? Chaplains. Okay. I would say business people can be resolute. Supervisors can be resolute. They show that. Counselors are resolute. Those examples I just gave, they all demonstrate that focus and that focus to accomplishing their goals. Okay, so let's talk about how being resolute plays a part in law enforcement. Think about right now a critical incident. So an active shooter situation, whether that is at a public location or a private business, that officers are responding and you are the first one on scene. So being resolute is that you are that rock at that moment. You're the first person there. You have to have a control over yourself, over your emotions, over your fears, and be able to put those aside and do what needs to be done. You need to collect information. You have to deal with victims. You have to deal with witnesses. You have to get as much information as you can to be able to start to organize this response. You were the first person there. What information can you get? How are you going to set up your scene? How are you going to relay this information? What resources do you need to respond? And you can't do that. You can't respond if you're not in control. If you don't have that core center, that rock, to be able to process and start thinking about these things and dealing with all these inputs. Okay? And that's just the beginning. Now what about going into that location? Trying to find the suspect, overcoming your fears, looking around, searching a building, searching these rooms with a team, going through there, trying to find that suspect. Okay? There are going to be those inputs, those things, those hesitations that are going to hold you back, but you need to be resolute and be able to make the correct decisions, take the correct actions. You get that from your core. You get that when you are resolute. Another example of being resolute is think about the homicide detective. And let's take it a step further. Let's take this as a homicide case. The detective who's been working on it. The first 48 hours, the first week, they're crucial. That's when the information is fresh. The best opportunity to track down the leads, to get statements from witnesses, from victims, and key these different pieces together, to collect evidence, to check social media, to follow up with other businesses and witnesses and those leads that you develop. It's going to be that best time to capture that digital evidence, that surveillance video, before it expires, before it's lost. However, a lot of crimes are still not solved, and then the leads start to go cold. And that is how we get that term, the cold cases, right? So think about a detective who is still working that cold case, still tracking down those leads, waiting for months, for years, to get that key bit of information that will tie up his case or her case and bring justice to the victim and to the victim's family. It's that persistence, that focus on the goal of you will continue to track down the leads. Another example is, let's say, developing community relations. Your commitment to meeting with groups, hearing what they have to say, taking action on those things, passing it up the chain of command, creating events to bridge the police department and the community together. Not an easy task, but being resolute in that. Knowing that what you're doing is not going to be a night and day difference, but you will start to build and build and build and build upon those relationships. Having that persistence to keep on going, knowing that in 6 months, in 1 year, that you'll be far from where you were today. So I just went over a couple examples of how resoluteness shows up in our career. And I just want to give you some context about how I looked at things. As a sergeant, I would listen to the calls that came out over the radio, and I would listen to who would respond. And based on who would respond would have a say in how much involvement I had in that call. I would never not listen or pay attention to what's going on, because that would be neglecting my responsibilities as a sergeant. But there were certain officers that I knew when they were going out to that call would generally take care of it. And if they had issues, they would let me know, because they had earned that reputation time and time again of being able to handle those calls, being in control of their emotions, and being able to do the right thing because they were experienced. Okay. As a lieutenant, I then listened to my sergeants. I knew which sergeants I could have confidence and had a higher skill level of being able to handle the certain situations, the higher elevated circumstances or calls that they needed to go out on. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you can develop that reputation of having that strong core, of being in control of your emotions, having that reputation of being able to accomplish the calls, carrying out the tasks that are assigned to you. And it's not about just not asking for help, because that's not the case. There will always be something at some point that you come across that you need help with. What we look for in that situation is come to the sergeant, come to the lieutenant, say, hey boss, hey Sarge, hey LT, this is what I got. This is a problem I have. This is what I'm thinking about doing. You have any thoughts on that? You know, it is great if you can come to me with your ideas and then we can fine tune that. But what a lot of supervisors don't like is that, hey, that phone call of, hey Sarge, hey Lou, I got this and this, what should I do? Well, guess what? You're the one who's in the best situation to give me some insights as to what's going on. What do you think you should do? Let's start there. I will definitely support you and help you out, but let's start with what you're thinking. So that goes into these officers who had that reputation of being resolute, of being able to go out to a call and handle a lot of the things that came their way. So now let's talk about how you can improve your characteristics, your soft skills to become more resolute. So having a resolute character, it's not something you're just born with. It is a muscle that you can build, a reputation that you can build. So we're going to talk about some things today that will help you as an applicant become better and start to stand out from your competition. So what are some things that you can set in terms of goals? Think about in your life right now, what are some things that you can do? Starting an exercise regimen. Is it going to be taking some courses online, trying to study? Okay, don't just have this open-ended goal. Be specific. Instead of, I want to go work out, I'm going to go work out 1 day a week for the next month. After that, I'm going to go work out 2 days a week for the next month. And then after that, I'm going to work out 3 days a week for the next 6 months. Being very specific into your goals. So something at the end of the day, you can say, yes, I accomplished that, or no, I did not. And when you begin to accomplish those things and you check those boxes that you accomplished that goal, now that builds a confidence in you that you are able to carry out on the things you say you're going to. Same thing with meal prepping. Same thing with cleaning the house. Same thing for going out on walks with your significant other. The more you have the ability to hold to your goals and accomplish them, the more belief you're going to have in yourself that you will accomplish other things in the future. You know, in some of the examples that we talked about before, we were talking about critical incidents, that chaos. Well, you don't just show up one day and be like, hey, I can handle this. It was a process of developing mental toughness. So how can you achieve that? Well, why don't you go find some situations that are uncomfortable, that are difficult, that push you, that challenge your inner belief, whether you can do something or not. Maybe that's running a 5K. Maybe that's setting a time for running the 400 at a specific time frame that you set. What if it's playing sports? What situations that are out there you can put yourself into that are going to expand your ability, that's going to stretch yourself in terms of how you perform? It's going to be a little bit above what you're normally used to, but you're going to stretch, you're going to get there, and guess what? That's going to be your new norm. And then find something else, stretch a little bit more, make that your new norm. Continue to do that, and you are going to develop that mental toughness. You know, let's talk about another example here of decision making. Okay, how can you start to form the basis of how you would respond to things? And here's the thing that departments are always looking for, is finding people who can explain the why of what they did. Maybe you start to look at situations, you see something on the news, you see something on YouTube, and you look at it, and you say, okay, I would respond this way. Or if the situations were different, this is how I would respond. Start walking through these steps and think about why you would do this. What are the other factors that come into play? What else should you be thinking about? And then be able to explain why you did something. Because guess what? As an officer, that's what you're going to do every day. You're going to go to a call, you're going to go to a scene, you're going to take an action. You may make an arrest, you may advise people, but you have to be able to articulate why. Whether that's in the call notes, whether that's in a log sheet, whether that's in your statement for a report. Why did you do the actions you did? If you had to use force on someone, to what level of force was their resistance? What force did you use and why? So the better you are at being able to get into that habit, okay, of responding to things and being able to explain why, the quicker you're going to get. Okay, you're going to be able to recognize certain things, certain red flags, and you're going to be able to respond, and you're going to be able to make a decision, because you've what-ifed a lot of these situations and these scenarios. You've what-ifed, if it's situation A, I'm going to do this. If it's situation B, I'm going to do this. And now you are becoming better at making critical and quick decisions and being able to explain why. Again, that's key. Earlier I asked, who in your life is resolute? Okay, so who can you think about? If you came up with something, is that someone that you can approach and say, hey, I feel like you have a grasp on this, you have a handle on this. Do you mind helping me out? Helping me develop myself in this area? Find that mentor. A lot of people are out there and they are willing and eager to share how they got there. And it's going to help you. It's going to help you shorten the time it takes to learn that stuff. It's going to help you understand things better. That's what mentorship is about. So take advantage of that. And now as you go forward and you start to try to incorporate ways you can be more resolute, start jotting them down, especially when you have these wins. Because when you go to that oral board, or you're talking to that recruiter, or that background investigator, and they're asking you, what's your reputation? Do you have situations in your past that you've had to overcome challenges? Give me an example of why, and what did you do? And now you're gonna have some context to be able to respond to them. Just as importantly is when you have those wins and being able to acknowledge that, is acknowledging when you didn't. Acknowledging those failures, okay? Because we all know that you can't win all the time. So when you get knocked on your ass, what did you do? When you messed up on that group project, when you let the team down, what did you do? How did you fix it? What did you say to yourself that next time, if I'm ever in this situation, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z? How did you overcome those challenges, those failures? That is just as important as those wins. So as you develop these contexts or these stories that you can use as context, you're going to be able to paint that picture. You're going to be able to give specific situations of where you were resolute. And when you do that, now you are telling that story to that oral board, to that panel, and they start to feel that. They start to see the concrete steps, the tangibles, instead of just saying, yes, I'm dependable, I'm focused, I am determined, I have persistence. You have the ability to show them, and that is key. So as we wrap this up, I hope this helped understand some of the things that come into being resolute, how it factors into this career, and why departments are looking for people just like you who can demonstrate this characteristic. So what do you think? What examples can you come up with of ways to improve being resolute? If you can think of some, drop them in the comments. I'd love to see them. This is Lieutenant Skip. Take care.